Peru News Today. All you need to know about Peru.
Does Peru wonder what is happening in Ecuador? Daniel Noboa declares an internal armed conflict in the country. The Ecuadorian president has made this decision after the assault by an armed group on a television station in Guayaquil during a live broadcast. The president of Ecuador, Daniel Noboa, declared this Tuesday, January 9, an internal armed conflict in the country complementary to the state of exception in force since Monday, and has ordered the armed forces to carry out military operations to neutralize violent terrorist organizations. This decision was made after a group of hooded men broke into a television set in the city of Guayaquil and various disturbances following the escape of the leader of an armed gang. The incident took place at noon this Tuesday, when several men, belonging to the Los Tigrerones gang, according to La Hora, and carrying rifles and explosives, broke into the TC Televisión channel during a live news broadcast. The assailants detained and threatened to shoot the workers if they called the police. Finally, agents from the Intervention and Rescue Group, GIR, and the Special Operations Group, GOE, managed to access the set to free the television staff and detained at least 13 involved in the case, who will be prosecuted for terrorism. The assault on the TC Televisión set has been part of the recent wave of violence unleashed by criminal organizations that began this Monday with attacks on several media outlets and journalists, in addition to crises in prisons, attacks in streets and shopping centers, and threats to public buildings of the country, which have resulted in 8 deaths and at least 70 arrests, according to the police. The escape of the leader Los Caneros and a prison crisis, the precedents to the declaration of the state of exception in Ecuador. The violent actions that have occurred in Ecuador in recent days and that have led Noboa to declare a state of emergency and the existence of an internal armed conflict in the country have taken place as a result of the escape of Adolfo Macias, alias Fito, from the Guayaquil Litoral prison last Sunday. The leader of the criminal gang Los Caneros was sentenced to 34 years in prison in 2011 for organized crime, drug trafficking and murder. Hours after Fito's escape, prisoners in up to 6 prisons in the country began serious riots, in which at least 135 guards were taken hostage. Exception status. Given this situation, the president of Ecuador decreed this Monday a state of emergency throughout the country for 60 days due to serious internal commotion, establishing, among others, the following measures: mobilization and intervention of the armed forces as a complement to the actions of the national police to maintain public order and prevention of violence throughout the state territory, especially in the country's penitentiary centers. Suspension of the right to freedom of assembly of people to prevent any action that affects security and public order, with the national police and the armed forces of Ecuador being the authorities in charge of preventing and dismantling these types of concentrations. Suspension of the right to the inviolability of the home, consisting of the national police and the armed forces being able to carry out inspections and searches with the objective of finding hiding places, storage spaces for weapons and explosives, as well as dismantling ongoing or future threats. Daily curfew between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., applicable to the entire population with the exception of workers in the health, security or public services sectors, among others. Internal armed conflict. The declaration of the state of emergency was complemented this Tuesday with Decree No. 111, with which Noboa recognized the existence of an internal armed conflict in Ecuador, after the incidents on the TC television set. This latest decree identifies a total of 22 internal armed groups as terrorist organizations and orders the armed forces to carry out military operations under international humanitarian law, IHL, and respecting human rights to neutralize the components of these organizations. Hours after this statement, the Public and State Security Council, COSEP, held an extraordinary meeting to install the emergency agency in Ecuador and address the situation of violence that is developing in the country. Leave us your comment and subscribe to continue growing, and follow us on our social networks, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and TikTok.
Peru News Today. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.